Hello cowboys and cowgirls. Welcome to the very first devlog on my game Recolonizer, a tower defense game where you defend your shores against waves of invading ships. In this series I'll be walking you through the journey of developing this game from scratch, sharing everything from the initial ideas to the final polish. So today, let's see how it all began. Recolonizer started with one core idea. Let's go back to basics and make an honest-to-God tower defense game. For context, I'm a software engineer who has spent the past 4 years making little Unity things on my free time. They didn't amount to games because I didn't scope them correctly. Also, I didn't start out with a clear, concise concept. I was afraid to commit, also a little too eager to try different features and elements. So we ended up with an array of incohesive, unfinished little side projects. Also, this very nice low-poly pirate asset pack, which sat unused in my library. After being on a One Piece binge for the past month and a half, I knew that was gonna change. As an avid tower defense enjoyer in my younger years, I had plenty of inspiration to draw from. So I took it to the drawing board and created Cannon vs Pirate Ship, a cheap Plants vs Zombies clone where the cannons would shoot their designated lanes and the ships would approach from the horizon also in their designated lanes, maybe change lanes, something like that. But my plan was as solid as a sandcastle, and the first wave of creativity already started to melt the rigid lanes idea away. And when I started to draw some level ideas, I found myself deeply constrained by the idea of keeping everything in a grid. It just felt like it didn't fit the theme or the visuals, and it didn't seem like it would make for the gameplay to be more engaging in any way. I was puzzled. What format do I choose? Let's actually look at the technical requirements and see which one's more costly to implement. Maybe they'll get me to choose one. Hello from your left ear. Let's take a look at what I need to code to write my game in lane format versus freeform. For lane, we need a ship which follows a spline from the horizon to, the shores. Cannons that aim and fire at ships. Locations to place the cannons. And some logic to filter and sort the targets. I guess shoot in only the lane that you're in. Freeform, we need a ship that follows a spline, a cannon that aim and fire at ships, locations to place the cannons, some logic to filter. Wait. I guess I'll decide when I'm making the level. I didn't want to sit on this conundrum any longer, so I just move on to the core gameplay interactions. So, how do you play Recolonizer? Well, at any point in the game, the player can do one of two things: buy new cannons, or upgrade existing cannons. Upgrading cannons exposes a list of upgrades to choose from, and buying a cannon exposes a list of cannons to buy. When you select an upgrade or building, you get a summary of the upgrade or building that you just selected in the confirmation screen. It seemed like a great idea at the time, right?
Right?
Cool! That's enough to get the gears going and start putting zeros and ones on the hard drive. First things first, I set up a new Unity project and started building the foundation. Let me share with you an industry secret. Your time is limited. You can't do everything, and even if you could, it would take forever. So, I use some tools to make my life easier, namely 3D low-poly assets, particularly from Cinti. I love the aesthetic. It's pretty easy to customize if I need to, and most of all has probably saved me a million hours of asset preparation. To quickly build a natural terrain with great ambience, I choose Polaris Tools. It's a great package toolset that comes with a water simulator, a day and night cycle, but most importantly, a powerful low-poly terrain builder. I guess the water is also important too. You can find all the tools I use for this game in the description below. I spent a bit of time coming up with a tiny island with some nooks and crevices that the ship could approach from, and I put some low-poly palm trees to make it look decent. Some rocks too. Seems like a nice start. I'll put the fixed camera right here. Seems good enough to me. With the environment set, it was time to create the most important mechanic, the cannon. This is where things get fun. Let's think about this. The cannon needs to shoot perfectly on target every time, but it must shoot a physics projectile to add some dynamic to it. Also, it would be nice if it could aim in the direction it's shooting for visual, and it would be crucial for it to detect and keep track of its target. I've always been interested in physics, but somehow was never able to do physics well. Break down the problem, apply the formulas, etc. But I knew exactly what I wanted, and I knew somebody who could translate human language to math language for physics and translate that into C# language for Unity. My boy ChatGPT. I asked him, given an initial position, a final position, and a projectile speed number, write a C# function for Unity that returns a vector 3 representing the necessary initial velocity to launch an object to land at a final position from initial position using simple Newtonian mechanics and assuming all necessary constants, or pull them from the Unity physics system if available. Boom, and the machine writes code for me. Although I like to rescind all credit, is using a large language model that much less honorable than writing formula on a calculator and pressing enter? My formula is just a string of words in English instead of math. Sorry. I do know enough about physics to tell that this formula is an approximation, and I shouldn't add drag or any other outside forces to affect the projectile at risk of affecting the cannon's accuracy. Although adding drag could be a temporary effect to nerf the cannon's range without changing its range stat if I want to do something like that in the future. Food for thought. After getting the cannon ballistics to work, I put together a script to make the cannon aim the turret base and the barrels separately. I know what you're thinking. I asked ChatGPT for this one too, right? And you're right, I did. But it just gave me garbage, so yeah, guess I have to write my own stuff sometimes. Here it is. Perfect. Now that the cannon knows how to aim on target and shoot on target, we just need to give him a target. So let's figure out a way to identify enemies, sort them by priority, which one day the user may be able to control, and then feed this information to the aim component. Choose to keep each type of object in a separate layer and to tag the root of important objects. So enemies are in the actor layer for dynamic objects and tagged with enemy ship. So cannons can detect objects using the sphere collider as a trigger, filter by tag, sort by priority, and closest enemy first just to get started. And here's how it looks. As a professional front-end developer, making Unity UI is an interesting experience. Nonetheless, I painfully implement the initial design, hook up some functions to create ships, and there we have it, our first alpha build. And that wraps up the basics of how Recolonizer was born. Looking at the finished demo, I'm definitely feeling a bit stuck with the fixed camera. Also, I feel like my level design is a bit too constricted by the Plants vs Zombies style lane defense. So, I want to dream bigger, and I start thinking about a more flexible lane design and allow players to move the camera a bit, even if they are pinned to a specific position. I really have in mind this idea where you have zones where you have to defend and the camera is pinned to the zone like a security camera. Let's see how it pans out. I do love the aesthetic and the foundations. I think once I add a few more ships, islands, and cannons, this might actually be fun to play. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along as we develop Recolonizer together. Drop any questions or thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. By the way, you can play Recolonizer's open beta on your browser today on forloopcowboy.h.io. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.